and today's video is all about how to practice and actually learn to play Chopin's study Opus 10 number 1, which is probably one of the most famous studies written for piano in the entire repertoire. It's played a lot in concerts, in competitions. There are many CD recordings of it. It is also one of the studies that I started practicing quite early on. And I think Chopin studies in general are studies that really improve your technique, that are very helpful, that we can learn a lot from. I started playing it when I was about 13, 14 years old. And my teacher back then, he actually said, play one Chopin study every day. Practice one of the Opus 10 or Opus 25 every single day. And I think that there definitely is some truth to that, because the Chopin studies are a great cycle of pieces to build technique and to actually learn to play all the different difficult technical things that exist on the piano. I think if you can play the Chopin studies, you definitely have an incredibly solid foundation to play a lot of the piano repertoire that is out there. So I would also definitely recommend to look into Chopin studies and to practice many different ones if you are playing piano in a serious way. I also practiced a lot of Chopin studies, and again, my teacher back then had very specific methods that he taught us and exercises that he implemented in order for us to be able to play the studies in a very reliable way in stressful environments like an exam or a competition, which is where it's usually required to play a study. I find that with these pieces, it is very important to slowly progress. At least for me, it was that way. I didn't learn them very quickly and, let's say, started a month before and then played them in an exam or in a competition, but rather it developed very, very slowly, and I increased the tempo very, very slowly and gradually. And in that way, I think that the studies really sunk into my fingers, and I feel very at home now, because every day I would do my warm-up exercises, I would do my scales, and then I would just do one of the Chopin studies. I started out with either Opus 10 number 1 or Opus 10 number 2, and I have to say that Opus 10 number 1 definitely feels much more comfortable and easier for my fingers, but I know people that feel more comfortable with number 2, so it really depends on what your technique is and how your hands are built, I guess. But this was just part of my routine. So playing the Opus 10 number 1 really was something that I did every day and that felt very natural to me. Of course, I haven't been doing that every single day for 10 years, but I stopped playing it for a while, and now I also sometimes do it as a warm-up. So I definitely would recommend doing these studies and these exercises that I'm about to show you very regularly and very gradually. Don't expect to be able to play it if you're just starting out with one of these studies within a month. At least it wasn't like that for me. So starting out with Opus 10 number 1 now, the very, very first thing that I did with this actually was not to play through it slowly, but I immediately started out with these exercises that my teacher gave me. And there are 4 simple exercises. And the key to that is to really gradually increase the tempo. So when you start out, you start very, very slowly. The shots that I have for you are me playing it now. So of course they are in the final tempo. But when I started out, I was less than half of that tempo. So the first exercise is that you divide those arpeggios that go up and down into sections of 4, which is how it's naturally written. And then you choose one note of the 4, so either first, second, third, or fourth, and make that the longest note. And you stay on that for 3 beats, and then you play the rest, so the 3 notes that remain, within 1 beat. And what I did is I alternated day by day. So on one day I would stay on the first note, The next day I would stay on the second note, third day on the third note, fourth day on the fourth note, and then start again. Because going through every note and playing the whole study takes quite some time. So I think it's fine if you just take it day by day and make one of those 4 notes the longest. So after this exercise, the second one is to basically find out what the difficult arpeggios are. There are some classic difficult ones that if you've played the study or if you're currently practicing it, you most definitely know which ones I mean, that probably feel uncomfortable to anyone. But then there are some that feel uncomfortable to me, and then probably other ones that feel uncomfortable to other people. Usually there are ones where going down the 4th group of 4 notes changes and your 5th finger has to go, for example, on a black key. That usually is a hard one, so I pick out this one. Or I find that in the middle, there are some very uncomfortable ones where the thumb is playing a black key, or where you simply have to make the 3rd and 2nd finger go apart so very, very far. And I pick out these ones too. And what I do is I basically just pick out 8 notes and start with the middle 2, play them very slowly and very fast, and then add 1 note before and 1 note after that until I have the full 8 notes. So basically one succession of arpeggios. I said, this is something that you can do in every passage that feels uncomfortable to you. I usually pick out about 10 in the entire study and do those every day in that way. The third exercise is fairly simple but very effective, and it is to just take 2 bars, so it's basically one set of arpeggios up and down, and play them half tempo and then tempo. And when I say tempo, I mean your current tempo. So for me, this is my current tempo. But as I said, when I started out, it was much, much slower. I would actually use the metronome. And let's say if my final tempo now is 160, I would maybe do it in 100. So the half tempo would be incredibly slow. And then my tempo was 100. And I would do the entire study like that, divided into 2 bar sections, playing half tempo and then tempo. Just the right hand alone. So you can really focus on what those arpeggios feel like. And I think it's important to say here that one thing that I really look out for is not to make the elbow decide the movement. So especially when you're going down, I try not to play like this, da 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 da, because that's very time consuming, and making your arm go that far and alternating the whole time I find is not very effective. I try to really let the fingers do the job. Of course, sometimes you cannot avoid doing some kind of little movement like that, but I try for it not to be a rule that I play every scale going down or every arpeggio succession going down like this. Of course, it's important to say not to be tense, so you should never be tense here, purposely not moving the arm, because that definitely is counterproductive. So be very relaxed, and of course, if you have to move it a little bit, definitely move it by all means, but try to not flip it out every single time. Because as always, when you're playing fast pieces, the key is to reduce the muscle movement to the absolute minimum. Because the less muscle movement you have, the faster and the more comfortable and relaxed you're going to be. So if there's no need to do a movement like this, then don't do it. And then the fourth and final exercise is a simple run through. And there again, I used my current tempo. So in the beginning, my run through tempo would literally be something like 80 on the metronome. And then I would slowly, whenever I felt comfortable, increase it until I reach the tempo that I'm playing it in today. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and the exercises. If you have any other amazing exercises that you actually implement in this study or in other Chopin studies, definitely let me know. I think that many other people will also be interested because these are pieces that we all practice probably. And I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!